I'm Jermaine Genus, and these are the F2 Freestylers. In this series, we'll be looking at how studying facts, stats, and science can give you the edge in predicting outcomes in sport. In this episode, we'll be looking at something that is totally unpredictable. The weather.
While Jermaine looks at how weather affects athletic performance,
Starting to feel a bit now.
we'll be looking at how wind can impact a team's style of play.
Let's see how these guys go!
And we'll be testing the power of our trick shots.
Plus, all the expert insight that will give you the edge as we set out to prove once and for all that luck is no coincidence. That's all really nice, lads, but could you do it on a cold, wet Tuesday night in Stoke?
Jay, it's not even Tuesday, mate.
And we're not even in Stoke.
Stoke's Britannia Stadium has a reputation of one of the hardest grounds to play at, with pundits often asking if the world's elite players could survive a match there. So what is so special about a cold, wet Tuesday night in Stoke?
The thing that was so bizarre and unique about Stoke is that when you went out and someone said which way is the wind blowing, you couldn't say. You know, the litter would be coming from the stands and it'd be blowing all over the place, you know, it'd be blowing a gale. And for the visiting teams, they didn't know what to do. And then they'd get into the tunnel and all of a sudden the noise would hit them. And you could physically see some of the teams beaten before it even got on the pitch.
Me personally, it was one of my least favourite grounds to play at. I've been all over the place, Old Trafford, Anfield, the Emirates, won everywhere, but I don't think I've ever won at Stoke in my career.
There's gaps in the stadium that allow the wind to come in. It can be raining or snowing at any moment.
And we knew if we tried to go toe-to-toe with a lot of teams in the Premier League football, getting the ball down and play, that we'd be getting relegated straight away. So we used the conditions to our advantage because it suited our style of play.
Whether it's Stoke, the summer temperatures of France, or even the extreme heat of future international tournaments such as Qatar, success on the pitch is going to depend increasingly on the ability of the team and its players to adapt to these challenging conditions. If you ask most players, they would rather play in the familiar comfort of their home climate. So I want to find out exactly how extreme temperatures can affect athletic performance. But for that, we have to do the one thing that I miss least about playing football, the dreaded Bleep Test. And honestly, as much as I would love to do it, I really would, this guy's going to do it instead.
The Bleep Test is done by putting two cones 20 metres apart, and you run between each cone to the sound of a bleep, and you start at 8.5 kilometres an hour, and every minute we increase it by half a kilometre until you can't make it between the cones. That tells us your Bleep Test score.
Danny is going to be performing 3 bleep tests, one on a damp London sports field, one in a sub-zero snow dome, and one in the baking heat of the Dubai desert. This is going to be hard, isn't it?
Tough.
I can see already.
The heat.
Danny Higginbottom is a trained athlete, so his capacity to do endurance running is very high. He'll have been doing bleep tests for over 20 years.
Now the wind comes.
It wasn't enough, was it, just to run in the heat?
Huh.
I thought I'd bring you a sandstorm as well. Wow, this is serious.
Starting to feel it a bit now.
When Danny's running in normal temperature, we can see that his heart rate increases to a level that is acceptable for Danny. When he's in the cold conditions, we also see that his body can tolerate working in these conditions. But as soon as he starts running in hot conditions, his unsuitability to that environment means that his heart rate spikes very, very quickly, and his body can't recover.
Give it whatever you can.
For a 37-year-old player, Danny has done very well in the test. His heart rate has gone very high, but he recovers very quickly. In the cold conditions, Danny still has a very high score, high 10s. until he goes into the challenging situations in the heat, and he can only run half the distance.
Oh dear.
You look shattered, mate. How was it?
It was cold when you start, but you are like now. Don't feel cold.
I mean, how did this compare today?
It's actually better.
Yeah?
All right, the temperature's cold, but there's no wind, there's no rain, so you can get into a bit of a rhythm.
You've done all three now. Out of the three, would you say this was the hardest one?
I thought it would be the most difficult, but not by the distance that it is. It was ridiculous.
I mean, it's roasting out here and it's seriously hot.
It was definitely the toughest one.
The effects of Danny's bleep test in the hot conditions tell us that the players need to be acclimatised to playing in hot conditions. Research tells us that they should be up to 2 weeks exposed to stressful weather conditions and high-intensity exercise, playing in heat that may be 10 or 15 degrees higher than they're used to.
I remember playing in Italy. Usually as a player, I wanted to create chances for myself and for my teammates. But I found out that you can only do that a couple of times in a very hot climate. So I had to choose the right situations. For me, it changed the way I am as a player.
The great Brazil we remember from 1970 with Pelé and Tostão and Rivellino, what we think of as being the most beautiful form of football ever played, was only possible because of the heat and the altitude in Mexico, so you couldn't press.
Well, Mexico 86 was incredibly hot. When I played in Monterrey, it was over 110. We were losing a stone per game. There's places in France, obviously, in the Euros where it's going to be hot down south. And you have to maybe adapt a little bit your tactics and certainly your preparation to those climates.
As you can see, extreme weather can really affect the game, particularly wind. To find out just how much, we're going to meet 5 of football's biggest fans.
Get it? Fans.
You get it.
We're in southeast London, where a 7-a-side team known for their natural short passing game will face opponents that love long ball tactics in a game of 2 very different halves.
So, Jez, the first half's about to kick off. In the first half, we've got no wind.
The Oranges are playing short football, the Blacks are playing long ball. Let's see which team fares the best.
Jez, they're doing well keeping the ball. Good football.
He's won the ball. He should go long here. Yep, he's done it.
Oh, he's done well. Finish!
Unlucky.
Unlucky.
But you can see the threat's there.
Yeah. Set him. Finish! Yes! Good finish. The long ball Blacks, they're creating much more chances in this first half. You know, they seem to have a chance every minute or two.
Can he put him in? Can he put him in? Oh, he's turned.
Ah! Once again, long ball led to a goal.
The direct style is definitely working for the Blacks.
So that's the first half over. The long ball team dominated throughout.
However, for the second half, we're about to make things very interesting. Bill, turn on the wind turbines.
There's 5 settings on these wind turbines. 5 is the maximum. We've chose number 5. Let's see how these guys cope.
You can see how effective the wind turbines are. It's not even staying on the centre spot. What's happening is the long ball team are finding it very, very difficult to judge their weight of pass. So they're overplaying it or underplaying it, whereas the short ball team, they're keeping it short and simple, and there's less mistakes. Goal. These wind turbines have totally changed the game. All of a sudden, the Oranges, they're on top.
Oh!
In the first half, the Black team's long ball tactics were most effective. They had less possession, but more chances on goal. However, when we turned on the wind turbines in the second half, the long ball team's passing accuracy dropped dramatically, and they weren't able to create as many chances, whereas the Orange team's short ball game was less affected. This shows how much windy conditions can transform a football match.
I'd take any weather condition apart from wind. For a goalkeeper in football, all footballers hate playing in wind. It just causes havoc no matter what style of football you want to play.
The wind was something that was very difficult because if the ball was coming along from the opposition, And you've got to try and judge it, and that could be very tough.
Jurgen Klopp's been talking about this season, and something Arsene Wenger talked about when he first arrived, is the wind in England, that it makes it hard to train.
Strong winds, as a manager you have to look at it and you have to give the players self-belief that whatever the weather conditions, that your style of play can deal with it. Irrespective of wind, heat, rain, whatever it may be, have belief in how you play and how good you can deal with the ball technically.
Personally, I quite like playing into the wind because I knew I had the ability to drop the ball in behind and use the wind. So it's a mental thing. You have to adapt and have turned whatever the elements are giving you into a positive.
Let's hear how the Unibet experts use weather to give them the edge when predicting outcomes.
The weather will have a crucial impact on the outcome of football matches, so it's vital to check the forecast before placing your bets.
You have very hot conditions, like in Brazil. You have a different weather in Rio or in Amazonas, and the games in Amazonas, they was very slow with a low score. I like to bet under 2.5 goals.
If it's raining a lot and if it's windy, it can affect the creative part of the game. I will be a bit careful with the favourites if it's very rainy and windy.
Bad weather tends to equalise mismatched opponents. The underdog has a much better chance of keeping the score close, so bets on under 2.5 goals are usually the intelligent pick.
Now, we know Billy strikes the ball so it flies like the wind, but it's time to put it to the test with this little bad boy.
Oh,
107.
107.
That's the warm-up strike.
108. Oh, that was a 109.
Bill, can you do me a favour? Stop going at 90%. Because I know, I've seen you strike the ball harder than 108. Oh, that's more like it, Bill.
Well, I fancy it now. I fancy a 112.
He fancies a 112! This is the moment you show exactly what sort of power we're dealing with. Look at that, look at that, look at that!
I can top that. I've got one more strike in me. Probably at maximum power, then it's going to start going down. Let me have one more.
Let's do it.
Give me one more.
You ready?
Oh!
What? 120! 120! Bring the camera over here, bring the camera over here. That's unbelievable! 120 kilometres per hour. Bill, do you realise how fast that is?
I'm proud of that, Jez. Can I take this home with me, guys? Can I take this home?
Come wind or rain, snow or even a little bit of heat, we hope we have given you some true insight to help give you that edge when predicting the outcomes. So look out for more as we prove once and for all that luck is no coincidence. Is it that way then?
Yes, mate.
Come on, let's go.
Let's go.
You sure it's this way?
You tell me.
Let's just go anyway.
Fancy a bleep test?